No funny business today. We're talking politics and money here on Flying for Flavor. Welcome to episode 7 of Flying for Flavor. This is the final episode of the month of September. It's been quite a whirlwind the last couple of weeks, and I'm kind of excited to get into a regular schedule. So starting in October, it is going to be every Saturday. I thought Saturdays were a good day for downloading and listening to podcasts, especially those about easy and fun topics like food, wine, and travel. So every Saturday, starting October the 7th, there'll be a brand new episode waiting in your podcast subscriptions or your inbox if you're using an RRS subscription service. So October the 7th, of course, is Canadian Thanksgiving weekend. So I will be having a Thanksgiving themed episode for that weekend. And then we'll continue on with the general food, wine, and travel themed podcasts for the rest of the season. So for this episode, as well as the one for October 14th, after the Thanksgiving episode, we're going to be talking about the pending changes to the Ontario labor laws. I know it sounds like it's a pretty dry topic, and as much as you might be listening to this because you love food, wine, and travel, because you love food, wine, and travel is exactly why I wanted to discuss this, because it's surprising how many people aren't aware of the changes that are coming. Not only are they not aware, but they don't know how it's going to affect them, or they think because they don't work in a minimum wage job that it's not going to affect them. Basically, if you buy food or you're buying travel or just about anything here in Ontario, your prices are going to go up if they haven't already. So a couple of things that I've noticed as I've been chatting with people, those who are working in the restaurant industry, specifically franchises, most of the menus have already been changed. Prices have been increasing already to reflect the new minimum wage changes that were going to be happening starting January 1st, 2018. So I thought it was important enough and that it was going to affect enough people that this would be a great opportunity to sort of give you a recap of what the proposed changes are in all the different industries that are tied to food, wine, and travel. And whether you're on the service side of the industry or you're on the guest side of the industry, at some point, this is going to affect you. So it's always better to be informed. So I thought that I would start off this episode by giving you a little bit of a recap based on what is being proposed through the Ontario government's Ministry of Labor's website, just to give you an idea of what kind of changes they're proposing before we get into the reactions from it. So according to the new Fair Workplaces, Better Jobs Act of 2017, here are the new changes that they're proposing. So starting off, the Ontario's general minimum wage is going to go up to $14 per hour, starting that January 1st. But of course, that does not include anyone who is serving alcohol as part of their job because they're in a different wage range. And so their changes will be slightly different. And then it's going to go up to $15 an hour starting January 1st, 2019. And then it's going to follow by annual increases at the rate of inflation. They want to mandate equal pay for full-time, temporary, casual, and seasonal employees doing the same job as full-time employees, and equal pay for temporary help agency employees doing the same job as permanent employees at the agency's client companies. It's all very technical, but they basically just want to make sure that part-time, casual, etc., are basically being paid the same amount weighted based on their full-time counterparts. They want to expand personal emergency leave to include an across-the-board minimum of at least 2 paid days per year for all workers. They want to bring Ontario's vacation time into line with the national average by ensuring that at least 3 weeks vacation after 5 years with the same employer. They want to make employee scheduling fairer, including requiring employees to be paid for 3 hours of work if their shift is canceled within 48 hours of its scheduled start time. So I know that sounds a little bit technical, but I wanted to give you a bit of an overview of what the Ministry of Labor is saying, and we're going to hear different sides of this. So for this particular episode, we're going to talk to Bev Wills, the general manager of Finn McCool's here in Sudbury. If you have listened to previous episodes, then you've already met Bev. She is not just the general manager, but she's also has a great food service background. So she's seen both sides of it and that part of the service industry. So we had lots to talk about during that time we spent in my kitchen. So please mind the sound. I have a very large open style kitchen, and no microphone or editing could get me to redo that great interview. So I did my best to clean up the audio, but I think the information that she is going to share is worth it.
It's because they don't rely on their hourly wage. They rely on the commission that they get off the tables, right? So a jump in, I think the initial jump is going to be a couple of bucks. And then it just like they bank their paychecks, right? So a lot of them just that money goes in their account. They're hoping that their check is high enough to cover their cell phone bill, their rent, their bills, whatever. And then, if they're part-time, they're using their gratuities for fun time. If they're full-time, then they're obviously banking some of that as well. But they've made so much little, or that's not the right way to say it. They've made less than for so long that it's just a little bit of a supplement for them. There is another thing that scares me about the minimum wage increase, and that is that we have a lot of, we do a lot of scratch cooking, and I think I'm proud of that. And I don't know how we're not going to be able to not source other products. So if I just use, one example is we use a whole chicken. We bring in a fresh chicken, never frozen. We prepare that, we poach it, we cool it, we debone it, we skin it, we break it down, and that goes on your nachos. And it sounds so extravagant to put something like that on a nacho, but that's what we do. But can we afford to pay somebody to come in first thing in the morning and poach that chicken? Are we getting credit for the fact that there's a lot of work that goes into something that just goes in your taco or, on your Cobb salad? Do people realize the background that chicken had? We didn't just take a chicken breast and grill it. That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. But so do we have to eliminate stuff like that? Do we source out our awesome pastry? Do we source that out? Because, can we eliminate 5 hours, 6 hours a week of just rolling out pastry? I don't want to do that. I'm just saying that might come down the pipe. And I think, I hope we don't go back to, and when I say we, I mean the industry in general, do we go back to more processed foods?
No, I still remember the days back when I was out shopping and stuff for my business and going to big, food shows. And all of these sales reps are all lined up, and every one of them is trying to pitch to me jugs of pre-made salad dressing, right, and jugs of tartar sauce and jugs of mayonnaise. Right. And when I would tell them I make my own salad dressing, they're like, "What? That's just crazy." And I said, "No, because this way I only make as much as I need." Right? Or I can change it as I need to, right, or change an ingredient or a seasoning as I need to, as opposed to doing the pre-made stuff. But there was a large amount, and I'm finding that more and more as I'm talking to restaurant owners and chefs, even here locally in Northern Ontario. They're getting more away from that, and I don't know if it's driven by the guests who are now asking for it. Right. But it's a little bit healthier, it's less processed foods, but it's more expensive. It's more expensive, and it's more labor intensive, right? So when we think of, what can we do to cut back? So right now, we cut our own bacon. That's crazy to me that other people, I love that we cut our own bacon. Yes. Don't get me wrong, but do we get credit for that? Do people coming into my restaurant know that we've taken, a pork belly and we've cut that bacon into slabs? I would be putting little signs on all of your tables, yeah, with little fun facts on every single, yeah, table. Well, did you know that? Yeah. Like a little trivia started thing. All the restaurants out there, if you're listening, I think that's a cool thing. If you do something like, I'm going to be interviewing Mark about making his own honey. Yeah. As much as he's telling them, I think it needs to be. Know. I don't think people know that the honey that's in that dressing that he made, he's taking care of his own bees. Yeah, that's crazy. I know, that's fun. Yeah, so but then how much stuff can you have on the table but is the average consumer or guest coming into a franchised restaurant expecting that? So do they want to see all that stuff on their table? Do they I would love to be able to, do you care?
So one of the things that we started back in, it starts way, we now have like all Canadian beef. We have all Canadian pork. We support Canadian chicken farmers. Our beef is fresh, never frozen, raised without use of antibiotics. I mean, do they care? I want to know.
I'm making notes of that as we speak because I thought, because I have access to a large group of food fanatics.
There you go.
Via various websites, so I can put out an anonymous survey saying,
there you go.
If it's going to affect your bottom line, the price of what you're eating, do you care?
Do you care?
How much is it? If we do things by hand or source out proper healthy local ingredients, is it going to make or break your decision on where you're eating?
Perfect. So there's all kinds of different studies, and you can skew studies and you can do all that stuff, but I think that people care about the environment, and I think that for some people it's just in the back of their heads, and so if they can go to a restaurant that's sort of supporting that, then maybe that's their way of supporting it. But sometimes I just wonder sometimes if they really know that all the work that went into making that Guinness steak and mushroom pie, or the fact that beef was never frozen and that you had a prep cook there at 9:00 in the morning. We froze the butter so that we could grate the butter to make that pastry. I mean, there's people that don't even do that at home.
No.
And we're doing that in our back kitchen. We have these slabs. But anyway, I don't want to source out those ingredients. Don't get me wrong. But if it gets super expensive, you have to compensate.
That's right. And so I think that's one of those things that when people, I say people, as in the end consumer, is looking at the new menus that are being put in front of them with slightly higher prices.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that through conversations like what we're having and going forward, that they're realizing that price increase is not just to pay more to that server who brought you the food.
Exactly.
There's a lot of other hands that have basically touched that process along the way, and a lot of them are affected by this minimum wage hike. And so there's a lot of people that restaurant owners, managers have to pay to get to that same spot.
Absolutely.
And that price increase, if there's no changes made on the other side where there's scheduling changes and hours and everything else, that price increase could have even been more.
Right. It could have. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Because I think there's a misconception too that if you're a restaurant owner and your restaurant is doing well, or the public thinks that it's doing well, or the perception is that it's doing well, is that you're making money hand over fist. They're just regular Joes. They have mortgages, they have car payments. Like, there's very few of us in the community that are living extravagant lifestyles.
What, you don't have a summer home?
No, actually I don't.
I saw something in one of the shows this morning talking about, I think it was one of the late night shows, but they were laughing about this. What, you don't have a summer home? Yeah. Doesn't everybody have a summer home?
Like I make car payments, and I have outrageous hydro bills at home, and I have mortgages and stuff like that. And I'm not even an owner. I'm a general manager, but I know the owners, and I know many, many other owners, and I know that they're not vacationing in Europe on a regular basis and stuff like that, unless they've been at it for 30 years, and then they deserve it. They've been able to put money away and stuff like that. They're not making money off the backs of these, minimum wage people. If they're successful as a whole, then that's cool. But, we experienced something in a Northern Ontario city that I used to work in a long time ago. One of the mills went on strike, and it didn't affect right away, but down later on, maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, we noticed that we were still busy, but we noticed that they were trading down. So they're still going out to eat because we are a society that likes to treat ourselves, and it's just become normal to go out and have a meal in a restaurant. But we noticed that we weren't selling as many, say, full racks of ribs. We were selling more half racks of ribs. We weren't selling as many steaks. We were selling lots of burgers. So they're going out, but they're trading down.
Or they're ordering one course as opposed to 2.
Right. Or there's maybe only 2 cocktails at the table when maybe there would be 3.
Oh, the shame
I know, And, you're trying to, by the way, it's always better to get a bottle. wine.
That's going to be
a whole other story.
Podcast, yes.
But we did notice that, and so when it comes to like that kind of stuff, we're happy that they're coming to our place, even if their guest check average is lower, because at the end of the day, it's all about getting guests through the door, right? And they have so many choices and so many. At any given time on a Friday night, there's how many thousands of people with their wallets in hand that are waiting to go out and dine. So if they go to your restaurant, be happy that they had a burger. When times are better, they're having prime rib, they're having the more expensive dishes.
So, yes, as long as they're coming. So as Bev requested, I did post on the Facebook page earlier this season. So that would be just before the podcast launched. And I did put it out there that would you pay more for foods and restaurant dishes knowing that they were made with local ingredients and made from scratch? And I only got 4 responses because, of course, the podcast page was new. But everyone seemed to be okay with it. So it'll be interesting to see as the new menus and pricing and stuff come out, and hopefully Bev and other service providers, be it servers or restaurant managers, can start to relay that kind of information to their guests. Maybe they won't be so price sensitive, but we'll see.
We don't begrudge somebody making more per hour. It just seems like so much, so quickly. That's one of our things. Like if it was more gradual, I think it would be a little easier to take, a little easier to absorb. So just for my behind the scenes part of it, because there's probably, again, a lot of people who are eating out in restaurants don't necessarily know this. So what are your thoughts? This 48-hour notice. When I first heard about it, it made it sound like you have to have 48 hours notice to call somebody in, but essentially it's 48 hours notice to cancel. Right. So if someone's on a shift and all of a sudden you realize that, oh my God, we just forgot that there's a big festival this weekend, so it's on the other side of town, no one's going to be here, if you don't give them 48 hours notice, you must pay them 3 hours for a 3-hour shift. Are you finding that, I don't know, depending on how you do your scheduling, is that really going to make or break things for you, this 48-hour notice to cancel, or you were already doing this and it's not going to be that big of a deal? Well, we definitely weren't already doing that. Yeah. Because things fluctuate in our business all the time. So it's raining today. We might be busy tonight because there's people coming in from cottages as opposed to going away to cottages, or they may not want to be spending time out at the lake because it might be a little chilly. Hey, you know what, let's go out for dinner. There's some music happening. So we may have to increase the staff. So the flip side to that is when it's, like you said, there's festivals going on. We're not giving 48 hours notice, but we have found that if we just say, hey, you know what, to a server, hey, you know what, we really don't think it's going to be crazy busy tonight. Would you like to have the night off? Oh, asking? Yes. So then it's a volunteer. Yes. You know what? Yeah, you know what? I'll take the night off. There's very few that are going to say, no, I'm going to be there and you're going to pay me my 3 hours. If they hold you to it, then, you have to bring them in, right? Yeah. But I think that's going to be a wait and see, because I think for a lot of the servers, sometimes they're just like, yeah, I'll take the night off, sure. And especially depending on how their last few weeks were. If exactly. If business was good, they don't mind it. Exactly. But that's the life of a server, right? So you take the good with the bad, because they can have, they could have served a group of really good tippers the night before and kind of think, yeah, you know what, I could actually afford to take the night off. Or, yeah, you know what, some friends are having a party out in the whatever. Cooks is going to be a different story. But we don't normally call cooks off. We usually need them, no matter what. No, you know what I mean? Like, no matter what you need your staff. So if you're going with, say, three line cooks, a dishwasher, you need them. They may end up going home at 8:30 instead of 10:30 because it's a quiet-ish night, but there's always a minimum amount of labor. I hate to refer to them as labor, but there's always a minimum amount that you need. There's just like one of those, yeah. But if you get in a group of 20 decides to walk in that you weren't expecting, right? Well, like having a short one server
can help out or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
But if you're short in the kitchen,
Yeah,
there's a
well,
problem.
unless you're cross-trained. So, and that's the other thing that I know that in my industry, and I, not to toot my own horn, but I have a culinary background. So, you know, if you're having a quiet Monday night and boom, you get 2 baseball teams in and 2 Frisbee football teams in, and you're down to 1 cook because it was 9:15. First of all, you're ecstatic that 40 people have just walked through your door, 45 people just walked through your door. But I just walk to the back and say, okay, this is what's happening. You let me know. I'm going to come back and I'm going to shake fries, or I'm going to put burgers together for you, or whatever. Just tell me where you need me, because I have that ability, and I think that's really important for any restaurateur to be able to.
Do you think now, that I think about cross training, I think that's fascinating. So you think there's going to be more of that happening?
Has to be.
So anyone who's only ever served forever and ever, amen, they may have to now help out with dishes when things are, and they're going to have to help out with general hostess duties, welcoming guests at the door and showing them to tables. And
well, they welcome guests at the door quite happily, because if you're going with a night that say you've only got 4 servers on and you've sectioned them off, they all have sections, often they run for the door anyway, because they're just like, okay, I'm gonna scoop that table. And that's just the nature of the business. That won't be mind-blowing to anybody. I hope it's not. I mean, they share the wealth, but in the back of house, it's going to be more important, definitely, to have cross-trained people.
Do you think there's any benefit to servers who want to gain more experience, up their game somewhat, to get some kitchen training?
Yeah, definitely. I've worked with servers who tend to be often they're a little bit younger, or they're like single moms, and they're looking to make as much money as possible, and they'll come to me and they'll say, hey, I'll do dishes. Like, I can come in and I'll do dishes from like 10 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. I'll go home, I'll organize my home life, and then I'll come back at 5 and serve. And I think that's fantastic. And they get a much better view of what happens in the back of house. So when a server sometimes comes on the hutch and they're waiting for some food to come up in the hot window, and they're like, oh my God, it's hot. Are you kidding me? Because isn't
that the old statement?
Yeah.
Right.
So because I'm one of those obnoxious managers, maybe, that I'll just look at them and really, because it's like 500 degrees back there for them. So you gotta. But when they work back there, or when you have those unexpected nights and somebody jumps back and does a couple of racks of dishes, the cooks are like, really? Like, that's fantastic. Thank you. So if you can promote that teamwork, if you can promote that kind of, the cook's coming out at the end of the night and the server's going to give them a lift home, so they put the chairs up. Like, it's sort of a tit for tat. Cross-training in my world has always been key. So not just on the line, because it's all broken down into sections. If you've got someone who can do saute, grill, and fryer convection, or you've only got someone who can work saute, well, that saute guy he's not that valuable to you. They have to go home a little bit early, because if it does get busy, he can't help out on the grill. He needs to know how to prepare a burger or a steak. So getting the front of house involved, definitely. So sometimes what we've done is, it's difficult to explain maybe, but you put your empty racks down. So instead of just piling their dishes where the dishes would normally go, they have no choice but to put them in the racks now, and then the cook just has to go back, grab that rack of dishes and put it through. They don't have to do that work. Take the extra steps. So if you're teamwork oriented, I mean, that's a no-brainer.
It's time for Fly in My Soup. This is the time of the episode where I get to rant a little bit. So if you've been following on social media at all, you've been noticing that I've been spending a lot of time in airlines and airports. I've been flying around North America and, of course, the Caribbean prior to all of the hurricanes, of course, just trying to get some work done on the podcast, gather some interviews, work on some show concepts, etc. But as I've been traveling, I don't know if it's just something with the season, but I've had a lot of flight bumps, cancellations, delays, changes in flight times. And unfortunately, most of those changes usually come with very little explanation from any of the airline staff. So I don't know if that's the way that they're trained, but it drives me bonkers not understanding or knowing why certain things are happening. And it's not that I'm expecting them to divulge their entire business strategies and plans that maybe is only meant for certain staff to know. But I think some honesty sometimes is the best policy. And I've heard some strange excuses over the last several months, such as a flight attendant was sick or just called in sick, so we had to cancel the flight. And I'm thinking, you only have the one? It was it was a short haul flight, but still, someone calls in sick and the whole flight's canceled. That was a strange one. I've also heard some other stuff talking about, well, there's plane issues because of humidity with this recent heat. There's been all kinds of things. All I'm requesting out there for airlines is to share a little bit more. Or if your airline staff, request if you can share things a little bit more and perhaps share things in a more timely fashion. So for me who lives on my phone with data plans, etc., even I who check my phone and social media and everything on an ongoing basis, it's been recent habit for airlines to notify me only by email, even though I provide both my cell phone number and email. And it's usually very short notice that there's been a change in my flight. Sometimes it's unfortunately 10 to 15 minutes just before I arrive at the airport to check in for my flight or to drop off my bags. And some cases, that's plenty of time to give me a heads up. Other times, I really would have loved to sleep in. I didn't want to have to get up at 5 a.m. to catch the flight if I knew that my next flight was not going to be for another 5 to 6 hours. So things like that would actually help me plan along the way. And it also inspired me. I am going to write an entire blog. I'll have the link in the show notes. Hopefully I'll have it done by the time you're listening to this. But basically talking about tips on how to get through that last minute layover that you weren't planning. So my other little request that I like to send out to airlines out there, anyone who's working in airports, please try to provide either storage lockers or a storage room for extra carry-ons or baggage so that if people have to stick around an airport for 4 hours or longer, they don't have to actually drag their bags around. You can take their bags like a hotel does, store them, even charge them for it or give them vouchers depending on how long the luggage is going to be there for. But at least it allows them some flexibility of maybe going off site, leaving the airport, going to see some sights while they're killing time, and they won't be as angry about having to hang out at the airport. Just a little thought from this frequent traveler to you.
It's just, and we don't begrudge people needing or wanting more per hour. We really don't. It's that we need to compensate somehow. So it always comes back to relativity as far as I'm concerned. When a guest comes in and they think that, having a lamb shank or salmon or steak is already maybe a little bit more, now it's going to be more because we have to, as costs go up, we have to compensate. It's like every other expense in the restaurant business, So protein took a hike in increase I think 2 years ago, and burgers went up. They went up like $1. And people who go out all the time, they notice that. So they notice their average check at a restaurant used to be $25, it's now $28. So it can't be any different. When you go to a retail store, prices go up. But you go to a restaurant, you're like, wait a minute, why? Why? But why is it okay when you go to, Sears or, any place? It's always, their prices go up.
A lot of people that restaurant owners, managers have to pay to get to that same spot.
Absolutely.
And that price increase, if there's no changes made on the other side where there's scheduling changes and hours and everything else, that price increase could have even been more.
Right. It could have. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Because I think there's a misconception too that if you're a restaurant owner and your restaurant is doing well, or the public thinks that it's doing well, or the perception is that it's doing well, is that you're making money hand over fist. They're just regular Joes. They have mortgages. They have car payments. There's very few of us in the community that are living extravagant lifestyles.
What, you don't have a summer home?
No, actually I don't.
I saw something in one of the shows this morning talking about, I think it was one of the late night shows, but they were laughing about this. What? You don't have a summer home?
Yeah.
Doesn't everybody have a summer home?
You know, like I make car payments and I have outrageous hydro bills at home and I have mortgages and stuff like that. And I'm not even an owner. I'm a general manager, but I know the owners and I know many, many other owners, and I know that they're not vacationing in Europe on a regular basis and stuff like that unless they've been at it for 30 years, and then they deserve it. You know, they've been able to put money away and stuff like that. They're not making money off the backs of these, minimum wage people. If they're successful as a whole, then that's cool. But, we experienced something in a Northern Ontario city that I used to work in a long time ago. One of the mills went on strike. And it didn't affect right away, but down later on, maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, we noticed that we were still busy, but we noticed that they were trading down. So they're still going out to eat because we are a society that likes to treat ourselves. And it's just become normal to go out and have a meal in a restaurant. But we noticed that we weren't selling as many, say, full racks of ribs. We were selling more half racks of ribs. We weren't selling as many steaks. We were selling lots of burgers. So they're going out, but they're trading down.
Or they're ordering one course as opposed to two.
Right.
I think it's just going to weight things differently as opposed to eliminate one or the other.
Well, it also could be a wait and see too, right? So sometimes these... maybe it doesn't affect anybody at all, but you need to be proactive and you need to be on top of these things and get out in front of it and all those cliches. But we don't begrudge somebody making more per hour. It just seems like so much, so quickly.
Just before we close the show, I wanted to do our table topics. So I chose a table topic out of the travel box, and I thought it was kind of fitting that I chose this one because I've been traveling so much. Question for the day is, what do you miss the most about home when you're away? And as much as I love being in airports and in hotels and having that high level of service and seeing and tasting new things, I have to admit, the number one thing that I think about when I'm pulling in my driveway is I get to sleep in my own bed. It's one of those things that's very comforting. I chose my sheets and my bedding. I know how soft or hard that mattress is going to be. I have my own nightstand with my own little bottle of hand lotion and my own alarm clock and everything, and it's just mine. And there is no guessing. There is no concern about if I'm going to have a good night's sleep. It's just one of those things that really makes me feel like I'm at home. So what do you miss the most about home when you're away? So you can send your answers to any of my social media channels. You can use the Flying for Flavor Facebook page, or you can send me a tweet on Twitter or on my Instagram page. So just before we close, I'd like to do a little bit of homework. One, I wanted to let you know that in the show notes, I'm going to include the links to both the Ontario Ministry of Labour's new proposed changes, so you can read up on it if you want more details, as well as I'm also going to post the link to the Ontario Chamber of Commerce's side of the story. So basically, of course, the Chamber of Commerce is fighting for the rights and fairness for business owners in Ontario. So they have their own take on what these proposed changes are going to affect for the small, medium, and large-sized businesses here in Ontario. So you'll be able to read up on those, and then you can be a little bit more informed when you tune in again for What's the Minimum Part 2, which of course will be launched on October the 14th. So don't forget about the contest that I have up until the end of September, which is coming up this week. All you have to do is rate and review this podcast on iTunes to get your name into the draw. And then I will contact the winner to let them know that they've won a big catered and wine pairing dinner from me And of course, don't forget about the cruise that is scheduled for August 2018 that I'll be hosting in Bordeaux. So if you want more information on that, please check out the link in the show notes. And as always, it is stephaniepichet.ca/flavor7. Flavor spelled the Canadian way, FLAVOUR. And special note, Uniworld, the provider of this lovely river cruise, is offering a sale for this month only. It basically covers your airfare. So there's pretty much almost no excuse to not join me and eat and drink your way through the Bordeaux region. So make sure you click on the link for more information or contact your local Ontario Expedia Cruise Ship Center's office or travel agent for more information. And of course, big thanks out once again to my friend Bev Wills, the general manager at Finn McCool's here in Sudbury. I loved having a long chat with her. I promised her a quick 15-minute chat, and of course, it went on much longer, but she did provide me some great insight and information that I think is going to benefit a lot of people who are trying to learn more about all these pending changes to businesses, specifically within the hospitality industry. And of course, as always, thank you to you for listening to all 7 episodes for this first month of my podcast. It's been an interesting ride, and of course, I'm still learning, so I appreciate your patience and understanding as I learn this new media game. And please send along any suggestions you want for future episodes. I've got a lot in the pipeline, but I'm always looking for suggestions. You can always email me at flavor@stephaniepichet.ca. Until next time, we'll see you on October 7th for our Thanksgiving episode. Have a great week.